All right, welcome back to the Elias Makos Show. Now, the situation in Iran has taken on even more urgency. Nationwide protests against the government's reported the regime there has killed 2,000, arrested thousands more. Tehran has cut off internet access and accused the United States, Israel, other foreign powers of stoking unrest. Yesterday, we learned from Washington that the Trump administration would sanction Iran's trade partners with a 25% tariff and says it's exploring ways to support demonstrators. Let's bring in Kyle Matthews into the discussion here, co-founder and executive director of the Montreal Institute for Global Security. Kyle, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on again, Elias.
Just about an hour ago, we have a post from U.S. President Donald Trump. If you haven't seen it, I'll read it for you and for our listeners. Here's what he posted, again, just about an hour ago. Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. MIGA, M-I-G-A, make Iran great again, I imagine is what that means. President Donald J. Trump. There's the tweet there, Kyle. Whew. How are you analyzing this situation?
Well, clearly the U.S. Has always had a difficult relationship with Iran, with a theocracy there, and the president is expressing a desire to do something. The question is, what do you do? If there are protests across the entire country and cities, what can the U.S. government do to help the protesters or weaken the government? And there's a lot of debate on that. And so we'll have to watch and see. But clearly the situation is spiraling out of control, and the Iranian government doesn't seem to be able to control it.
What is different this time around? Because there's been other attempts to oust this regime. What is different here in your estimation?
Well, you're right. There have been continual protests over the treatment of women, over the economic situation, over Iranians who are angry that the mullahs, the theocracy, has spent so much money fighting wars in Syria, Yemen, and even in the Palestinian territory. So what's different now is that Iran is much weaker. It was attacked by the U.S. and by Israel, so it's weakened militarily. That limits its ability. It's lost a partner in Venezuela. It's teetering on the edge, and therefore possibly can't count on Russian support, if any. So it is much more volatile. But that being said, these protests, we just have to look at the Syrian civil war. It started off as protest, and it degenerated into over a decade of fighting and displacement. So I don't think there's any easy path forward, unfortunately, for the Iranian people.
Is there anything different here when it comes to communications? Now, I've noticed this on this program, whether it's been interviews we've done with Iranian expats. Actually, I had a listener call in yesterday, Kyle, of a listener that calls in quite frequently when we do open phone lines. He called in yesterday. I could tell right away something was different. He's of Iranian origin. He's a proud Persian. And his voice, he was like emotionally, I could tell. And I asked him about the situation in Iran. He was to me, it was like he was in tears on the other end, talking about what's happening on home. Even he mentioned this on the communication front, Starlink. Okay, that's the Elon Musk satellite internet company. Is that changing things here? That seemingly the Iranian regime doesn't have total 100% final say on communications?
Well, it does. I mean, the Iranian government has shut down all internet and other digital platforms, so people have been in the dark for a couple of days. But it does appear that the U.S. government with Elon Musk Starlink are looking to provide that. How much is being provided to the Iranian people, we don't really know yet. But clearly, communications are a part of being able to organize and to protest and actually take positions against the government, to hold it to account, and also document these human rights abuses we've heard. There's over 2,000 people, civilians killed. It's probably a lot higher. And one reason they shut down these communications is not that any evidence gets to the outside world.
What do you think is the American appetite in a situation like this? Because to me, it doesn't seem like Donald Trump is a fan of military intervention when it comes to boots on the ground and prolonged exposure inside a country. But he certainly seems open, like with Iran and nuclear sites last year, or what's happened in Venezuela. he seems very open to quick and dirty, in and out kind of operations, quick and clean, some people would say. What do you think the appetite from the Americans is here to affect change in Iran?
I don't think the Americans are going to deploy troops on the ground, at least regular troops. If there are CIA operatives, whoever operating that is possible. But I don't think you're going to see anything like the Black Hawk Down incident where Americans sent hundreds of soldiers, if not thousands, to Somalia in the early 1990s. I think what you're going to see is economic pressure on the regime, pressure on some of Iran's allies, perhaps some cyber attacks to weaken authorities. Maybe you'll see military kinetic action to actually reduce the ability of the Iranian government to target protesters, that police stations or other nefarious parts of the regime. But I don't think we're going to see any large scale, unless there was a really response from the Iranians to target American soldiers and troops in the wider region. I don't think we're going to see that happen.
What are you looking at right now? Like, what are you keeping your attention on right now to sort of get a glimpse of what the future holds for Iran?
I'm looking to see how these protests spread, if we see attacks on government buildings, if we see police or others turn to the side of the civilians. And I'm also looking at seeing what is the response of Russia and China. Those are the two big allies of Iran. They depend on for oil, for military support for the war. Like Russia depends on Iran for the war in Ukraine and for drone technology. So will these countries take any action? That's what we're looking for. They've just lost Venezuela, it appears. So this is another weakening of this authoritarian alliance that have been working together around the world for the past decade, if not more.
Are you worried of an escalation here? Because you mentioned, like Venezuela, you argued that, well, that's cutting off oil to Russia and cutting off oil supplies to Russia and China. Like, will there be a push come to shove where Russia and China could escalate and go on the offensive, as this is seemingly is targeted towards them as well?
Well, it is. And I don't think Russia is in the position. Russia is bogged down, have lost 1 million troops in Ukraine, fighting over that, threatening the European neighbors. So I don't know if it has much spare capacity at this moment to do anything in Iran. China is the wild card. But we'll wait and see. What we've seen very often is that when it comes to supporting Iran with the war with Israel, there wasn't really any support from these countries. So, but it does remain a danger. We're talking about large countries, geopolitical interest with oil, energy. It could be a flashpoint.
Kyle, going to have to leave it there. Always great talking to you on these types of subjects. Come back real soon, okay?
Thank you.
Kyle Matthews is co-founder, executive director of the Montreal Institute for Global Security. When we return on the Elias Makos Show, we'll take a look at the path Canada should take when it comes to artificial intelligence and fostering an AI industry in this country. There are a couple of paths and roads we could go down. We'll try and get down the best one next.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.